So hello class, I'm going to continue my PowerPoint on art. It's been a while, I gave you guys a long break and I'm going to try to make this shorter, plus I'm in school so the bells are ringing in 10 minutes, so that's going to force me to finish this in 10 minutes. Okay. So moving on, where we left off on was Northern French and Spanish Baroque, and now we're going to move on to Rococo, Neoclassicism, and Romanticism. Okay. Rococo is this frivolous, decorative style, frolicking nobility. Jean-Antoine Watteau, I know we're learning a lot of different artists. He created something called the Fête Galante, and I'll tell you what that is in a bit. Other artists, Boucher and Fragonard. So, Fête Galante is a style depicting nobility or rich people just relaxing. So that's what Jean-Antoine Watteau created. Okay, Boucher, he painted characters from classical myths. So for example, I can't even think of one, but classical myths, so like for example, like Hercules or Zeus. So I'm not too sure if that's what they did, but I'm talking about classical myths. That was Francois Boucher. And most of the characters are as nudes. I don't know why, but hey, what do you know? Okay. And then that's Rococo. Neoclassicism, it's the style of the French Revolution, so those that were doing this last year, that was the style of the art. They used classical influences to promote democracy. So a lot of this art was to help promote not necessarily monarchy, but democracy. And there's two famous ones from Neoclassicism. So we talked about Watteau and Boucher. The two famous ones are Jacques-Louis David and Jean-Dominique Ingres. So Jean-Louis David, again, if you want to write this down, he led the Neoclassicists, touting classical virtues. So he did one, and I don't know if you're going to remember this, but it's called the Oath of Hirati. And that one sort of encapsulates virtues. So all this virtuous stuff is what Jacques-Louis David did. After the French Revolution, David worked as a propaganda painter for Napoleon. And it contradicted, he had these values and stuff, and he sort of sold out. People considered him selling out, because now he started working for the government, when in this past, he talked about all these virtues against the government. Jean-Dominique Ingres, he studied under David. His was typical neoclassical. It had sharp lines, unemotional subjects, precise geometric composition, and it was very rational. Okay. Last one is Romanticism. So most people think of Romanticism like romance and love. Instead of love, I want you to consider it more like feeling, emotion, instead of like reason and stuff. So their subjects are nature, exotic scenes, stuff like that. The three ones I'm going to talk to you about are Eugene Delacroix, Theodore Gerard, and William Blake. So in terms of imaginative and dreaming and passion art, Romanticism, this one is the reverse of Neoclassicism, which was reason and virtues. Romanticism was about feeling and emotion and love. So to talk about these people, Delacroix, he was rivals with Ingres, so this guy right here, and Delacroix, they were rivals. Delacroix had like exotic themes. His favorite art subjects were foreign locations, animals engaged in violence, historical events, all these things that evoke like emotion. And the other two, there's nothing very important about them. I mean, they may come up with Gerard and then William Blake. Okay. Here are the three pictures that represent the three different styles. This is Rococo. This is called the Swing by Fragonard. So this is Rococo. This is Neoclassicism. This is by David. This is called the Oath of Hirati that I was talking about. So I don't know if you guys can see it, or it's too small, but this evokes like virtues and stuff. And this one at the bottom is Romantic. I'm not sure who the artist is, but it's two Arab horses fighting. That's called Romanticism. Okay. Then the next one, the next styles are Realism and Impressionism. Realism, just like it sounds like, is realism. Distinguished by unflinching naturalism and depictions of everyday people, especially laborers. So realism, very true, talking about everyday people doing labor and work. Here's a picture right here. The famous artists in this period of realism were Courbet, Daumier, and Millet. So Courbet, he had a very extroverted, very flamboyant personality. Daumier and Millet, I don't have anything on, but Courbet, he exhibited something called the Stonebreakers, and that was government funded. And it illustrates laborers repairing a road, and this is it right here. So this is as close to realism as it gets. Impressionism were developed by artists frustrated with the rules of salons. Salons were sort of like institutions that hired people to make art, and some people didn't like the rules of those salons. So instead, they focused on light, color, working outdoors. Some of you may have heard of Manet. Manet is the first Impressionist painter, very famous. And Claude Monet, his Impressionist array sort of gave the movement its name, Impressionism, because of Claude Monet. So Manet, he claimed that he was not part of the movement, but his lighting and stuff sort of represents Impressionism. Let me see. Manet, he painted something called Le Déjeuner. It's called Luncheon on the Grass. How about that in English? Luncheon on the Grass. And his work scandalized the public with the portrayal of two clothed men and a nude woman, and not in a classical setting. So it's sort of weird, but that's Impressionism. Okay. New paint brushes allowed Impressionists to work outside, so that's why they have more outside stuff, because in the past they were only allowed to paint, or their tools could only work indoors. So here, this is Luncheon on the Grass. I was thinking about, I know it's really tiny if you can't see it. This is Luncheon on the Grass. And this is the Impression Sunrise. So do you see how this type of style is more outdoorsy, light color, stuff like that. After that is Post-Impressionism. So yeah, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just more artists. Okay. Paul Cézanne, he led the most influential Post-Impressionist movement. He lacked solid forms, so it sort of revolutionized art. Okay. He also proposed dividing paintings into like a foreground, a middle ground, and a background. So he painted with drops of paint from a distance. They call it optical mixing. So he sought to have, he, just like many Post-Impressionists, liked vivid colors. So he mixed small dots of complementary colors to form these pictures. Van Gogh, some of you know Van Gogh. He's probably one of the most famous Post-Impressionists. He used color contrast theories and an impasto paint to represent southern France's brightly lit landscapes. Okay. Paul Gauguin, he used to be a stockbroker, and instead now he switched to art. So his family and his wife, basically he switched from his very successful career to be an artist. Paul Gauguin, he did work and he left to paint in Tahiti. So he's like, screw the stock market and stuff, I'm going to go to Tahiti and paint. Edgar Degas, he applied snapshot style in photography and a perspective just above his subjects. Pre-Raphaelites, they were critical of the Industrial Revolution, so they revived this pre-Renaissance art that we talked about earlier. And then Art Nouveau drew from the pre-Raphaelites broad curves, depiction of nature, back to the pre-Renaissance era, and that's what Art Nouveau is. And this right here is a picture of Van Gogh's Night Cafe. We're talking about displaying emotions through color, brushwork, and forms. So hopefully you followed along, maybe you highlighted some of this. So this will be your video for Tuesday night. I'll post another one for tomorrow. Hope you have a good day or good night, and I'll see you in the next video. All right, take care.